Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. Hands up if you know who I am, other than being James White. Okay. I'll ask you the same question in about 25 minutes. This has been a journey for me, not just preparing, but through the last 4 or 5 years. But before I start, I just want to say, and I'm going backwards. There we go. Welcome to the first Creative Mornings of 2018. It's pretty exciting. Thank you for allowing me to be here and to talk to you. I know your mornings are very precious. Today, I'm just James. I'm not fresh form James. I'm not design forward James. I'm just James. And hopefully you'll see that as I talk to you more about my journey. But before I start, I want everyone to stand up and acknowledge the talent in this room. And those who are already standing, stay standing. And what I'll say is, everyone in this room has the power to make a difference. And I'm not sure if Mike stole this, but my mission is about high fives, hugs, handshakes. They're all on the list. So hug, handshake, high five the people around you, because this year is going to be awesome. Yeah, that's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling it. And before I ask you to sit down, I have a couple of questions. Wow. That's great. I think I need a high five. I need a hug. Okay, before I ask you to sit down, I have a couple of questions. Hands up if you've ever felt stressed before. Okay. Those people who haven't got their hands up, you can sit down. Yeah, okay. Sit down if you've ever had a sleepless night. Due to anxiety, nothing else. Right. Okay. Okay. That's why you look so good. This is why this boat face doesn't look so good. Okay. Sit down if you've never had a debilitating panic attack. Never. Okay. So, it's okay. So those people stood up. You have had anxiety. You've had panic attacks. I can relate to those. Those people sat down. I think the people stood up probably need to talk to you about how you manage your stress and anxiety. And what I'd say is anxiety sucks, but you don't. None of you in this room suck. Anxiety is a natural part of life that we have to learn to manage. Anxiety is a broad spectrum of feelings. And what I'd say is that standing here, I have anxiety, but I'm able to manage it in a certain way. And I've learned to manage that through a number of experiences of my life. And I want to share those with you. Some of us have anxiety about different things, whether it's your social standing, whether it's an accent, whether it's a crowded room or speaking in public. All of them, in many ways, are valid. But I would say that they're magnified by social and societal pressures and preconceptions. People make anxiety worse for the person who's feeling it. Would you agree? Yeah. Okay. We have to change that. So why am I standing up and sharing this with you, and why does it really matter? That's something only you can answer at the end of this. But my hope and my ask of you is just to keep an open mind through this journey that I'm going to take you through. That journey has really changed my perspective and life forever. And some of the stories that I'm going to share may give you a better understanding of how to manage anxiety, be more empathetic about people who are suffering from anxiety and depression, and maybe manage those situations both personally and with loved ones in the future. Risk versus gain. I find myself This is my personal situation. I find myself always doing this. What's the risk versus the gain that I'm going to get out of a situation? What are people going to think of me? What do you think of me right now? Should that matter? What are people going to say after I've delivered this talk or delivered that presentation or delivered that manifest? I don't know. Am I going to have an impact on the world? Am I going to do something because I just feel I have to? These are all the things that I weigh up in my mind, risk versus gain. But there's one thing that I've done and I've tried to strive for. And ultimately, it's an unobtainable goal. Perfection. I've been disappointed with my failure, with rejection, and my inability to realize that perfection isn't real, and it doesn't really matter in the grander schemes of things. Perfection doesn't have to be the thing that motivates you and drives you. More importantly, as I've got older and a little grayer, I've realized that my lack of mindfulness has been something that has been a limiting factor for me. And I'm trying really hard to be more mindful in everything I do, with my family, with my friends, with my work, with every situation I'm in. And I encourage you to think about what mindfulness means to you. So where did it all start? And no, it didn't start at my brother's wedding. And just to clarify, he hasn't been married multiple times. I have 4 brothers. Okay. I'm the middle of 5 blood brothers. There's 18 years difference between the youngest and oldest. As the middle, I've had to be a facilitator, a mediator, but always, I've never been the best communicator. And some may dispute that, but I feel that I'm not. I've had to endure the push and pulls of family dynamics. But I've really tried to be the best person I could be. I'm competitive at heart, and people who know me or think they know me see that. I've flown for the Air Force, I've played competitive sport, and I work in an incredibly difficult but rewarding industry that makes me anxious very often. But to date, there's always been something that I felt that's been missing, that I haven't really acknowledged or necessarily dealt with, but it's been my greatest motivator and downfall as I've seen it and as I've explored my inner mindfulness. And the question I have to you is, do you have something that limits you? Something that you need to work on? Something that keeps you from going forward? And we'll get back to that later. And it may be anxiety, it may be something different. I had a really fortunate upbringing. I just want to acknowledge that. I was healthy, I was happy, I exercised often, but I actually struggled without knowing. I couldn't read properly until I was 12 years old. As a result of that, I didn't like to public speak. Actually, I wouldn't public speak. 12 years old, just imagine that. The first time I flew solo, I had a catatonic episode. Just imagine flying at 15,000 feet and not being able to move. During my university finals, I had such a debilitating anxiety attack that I passed out for 12 hours. Here are some of the tactics that I used to help manage those episodes, even though they were far and few between. Maybe you could relate to some of these. Specifically, exercise. was a really great way of me managing those episodes. And it's incredible how your body and mind are so closely connected that exercise can affect how you think. I just want to pause on that. And I don't know how many people use exercise to make them feel better, but I really, truly believe it can be a great tool. I think the relevance of these examples, these are things that have helped me and may help you. But I was fortunate to have the support of people around me, and I was fortunate enough to be able to identify these coping mechanisms for my anxiety. And I was able to move past them because the episodes were not as frequently manifested. Fast forward 15 years, and I've realized I've self-managed my anxiety. And many people do, and that's okay. But it was only after a call from one of my brothers, I realized, was I managing it in the right way? Marcus, my second oldest brother and my best friend, he unexpectedly told me about his anxiety and depression. He'd been fighting it for many years without me or family realizing. And now he was finally ready to tell me about the story. But he wasn't ready to tell the rest of the family or the world because of the stigma that he felt anxiety put on him. He told me about his feeling of inadequacy, the constant fear of not being good enough, the dark holes and cycles that he got himself into, and that how diet, exercise, therapy, and yes, medication is not bad, has helped him manage those anxiety and the depression through the years. How do you think I felt? I felt relieved that he was able to share this with me, but I felt heartbroken that I didn't know. I felt guilty that I couldn't help. And at that point, I promised him that I would be there to support his journey and try to understand. It took Marcus a while for him to be able to tell the rest of the family after getting comfortable telling me, and took even longer before he was comfortable telling the public. And I'll get there in a minute. Through this journey, I started to have more conversations about mental health. And but interestingly, one of my other brothers shared with me that he had suffered from anxiety and depression all his life since being a teenager, but had never told a single person because of fear of being undervalued and disrespected. And still to this day, he hasn't. But what he shared with me was a blessing. It allowed me to understand a different perspective and started to make me think how I could try and help with anxiety and depression. Ironically, I had been really interested in the anatomy of anxiety for many years. I studied physiology and psychology through university. And the conversations that I had with family and friends started to provide the focus that I felt I needed to understand this journey that I was taking and that my family had been taking. In 2014, I had the privilege to work with the International Bipolar Foundation through Lead San Diego, an organization here. And I helped them develop a campaign to bust the stigma around mental health and specifically bipolar disorder. It was an eye-opener for me to understand the physiology and the psychology of mental health and really talk to people who are suffering not just from anxiety, not just from bipolar disorder, but from everything in between. If you think back to that spectrum of anxiety. And here is one of the ads that we created. I want to share this with you just to get a perspective from the person firsthand. This was Genevieve, and she was living with bipolar disorder. And this ran in media across the nation.
The thing with bipolar disorder is that when people are not doing well or they suffer from social stigma and they let other people's opinions shape how they feel about themselves, they don't feel like they're worthwhile. And I think that's a crying shame. I think that having an illness does not define who you are. It's not fun. It's going to be hard. You may feel better and then you may feel worse again, but being stable and keeping yourself stable is the greatest gift you can give to yourself and everybody around you. And even if you are in a very depressive phase or a hypomanic phase or a mixed phase, or you're trying a new medication and you just don't feel like it's working or the side effects are totally awful, you just need to make sure that you don't give up, that the payoff is worth it, that there is hope, and that you can make it through, and that stability and being happy is possible.
Deep breath. Okay, it's not all doom and gloom. A couple of years later, after conversations with my brother and my family, and one of my own kids' brain surgery, I found an initiative that provided me with the focus and clarity I needed to take the next step. And this was with One Mind, a mental research organization, mental health research organization that looks at preventing brain injury, trauma, mental health before it happens by researching the physiology around it. And they look at PTSD, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, anxiety, brain injury. And I started to fundraise and support this organization. And I would urge you to have a look at it because they're doing some amazing work. Things were getting better. However, during this time, my wife and I had a major incident that sent us into a downward spiral. Imagine finding your one-year-old son face down in a pond, lifeless and blue. My wife discovered him, jumped in, threw him out, picked him up, pounded him on his chest intuitively. Needless to say, my wife and I have never been the same since. She's blamed herself for not being an adequate mother, and in the ensuing months suffered from debilitating anxiety and panic attacks. I just want to note, my wife is an exceptional mother, an amazing friend and wife. Even if she doesn't see it sometimes, she is. Those close to her need to validate that for her. That event, that traumatic incident, changed our lives forever. And in a way, created a type of PTSD for Jody that changed her brain chemistry and led us into a completely unknown territory. Even though my son pulled through, he's now 5 years old and a rambunctious little squirt, as Grandma would say. So things were getting better. A year later, though, still in kind of limbo, I talked to Marcus, my second oldest brother, about the situation, and he reminded me about the success that he had had with exercise and diet and therapy. Because we weren't, Jody and I, my wife and I, still weren't functioning the way we should after this traumatic event. My wife had been seeing a therapist. She had started practicing yoga and was getting better. I had thrown myself into work as a way of coping, which seemed really odd to her, but normal to me. I wasn't giving her the support that she needed, that I had promised my brother, which now seems ironic and a massive mistake, honestly. So Marcus suggested something really strange at the time. He said, what about a challenge that would allow you to focus your energy and create positivity in your life? So he suggested this race. It's called Marathon des Sables. I laughed at him. I said, you crazy? Realize what I just said. Rephrase the question. To give you some context, Marcus is an incredible athlete. He's run ultra marathons, he's an Ironman, and he's used exercise to manage his mental health, in addition to therapy and medication. So for him, this was a plausible endeavor for me to focus my energy using exercise, to ultimately help myself, to help Jody. But as you'll see, it didn't quite turn out like that. In early 2015, the matriarch of our family passed, Grandma, and this was really a catalyst that changed our plan. And with that, Marcus and I invited the other 3 brothers to join us in this race. And it's known as the toughest race on earth for a couple of reasons. And there's a bit of footage I want to show you in a minute. Within 24 hours, all 5 of the brothers across 3 continents at the time had signed up for this in 2016. Things were getting better. Life was going in the right direction. In the next 18 months, I lost my job, Jodie's father died, and her resentment and anxiety for me started to increase. She questioned why I was doing this race. She questioned my motivation. Was it for personal growth? Was it fear of failure? Was it about clarity, brotherly love, etc., etc.? She didn't understand why I was doing it. And honestly, I didn't know either. It was just a way to focus my energy from this traumatic incident that I didn't really know how to deal or cope with. I'm going to give you a glimpse of the race, and I ask you not to have any judgment.
The reason I decided to participate in the Marathon des Sables was to be with my brothers.
Oh, what am I doing here?
Exactly. What am I doing here?
Grandma had just passed away. We live on 3 different continents. We're not as close as we should be. Let's do something amazing to celebrate her life.
That one was for you, Grandma. When the boys said, let's do this, I thought, it's a stupid idea. Still is a stupid idea.
Jodie doesn't necessarily understand why I'm doing this. She's commented that it could be a selfish motivation.
So like he loses his job and I'm like, you're not really still doing this, are you? Why would you risk yourself when you have 3 little kids?
People have different types of depression and different depths of depression or anxiety. I've just got this constant fear that I'm going to get told I'm not good enough.
So that's a little clip, an extract from the race. We were fortunate to have some people filming it. I really didn't know anything, and it's taken me 2 years post-race to deal with my own mental health and have true compassion for others. I thought I had it, but I'm not sure I really did. I'm not sure I really had the empathy that I thought I had. Do I now? I'll let you be the judge of that. I believe anxiety is in all of us. It manifests itself differently in different situations. For me, anxiety manifests itself as fear. I realize that fear drives me. Fear gives me just enough anxiety to make me successful and push through the boundaries that I wouldn't normally have. But that's not good. Fear isn't good. And I've asked myself, how do I get more balance in my life so fear doesn't have to be that motivating factor? The highs and the lows aren't good. And so balance is my new mantra. Marcus post-race said something to me that really has stuck in my mind. He said that he wasn't running away from anxiety. He was running for anxiety. To create awareness around the stigma and about how conversations need to happen about it. Because unless you have the support, unless you're able to talk about it, we're not going to be able to make a difference. And let me just share with you just a little about his thoughts around that.
The finish line was inside. I was probably about 200 or 300 meters away, but it was suddenly at that point that everything started to fail. So I was starting to get really hot. My head was sort of overheating. I had this tunnel vision and blacking out. If I'd been any further out than I was, I wouldn't have made it at that point. I literally crawled over the finish line.
This is urgent medical vehicle needed for Marcus White.
Support you is a wonderful thing. This place is just, it personifies that. You've got all these people who are crazy, but not in a bad way, just they're so focused on what they're doing and how they're trying to do it, but they're leaning on each other.
Yeah, all a little bit crazy. So there's a couple of things that I've taken from this journey that I believe have helped me. Support, acceptance, sharing, empathy is a massive one. And education. How do we start to educate more people about mental health and specifically anxiety? Underpinned by research, because if we understand the cause of this epidemic, 1 in 4 people suffer from a mental health related issue here in the US. We can solve it. And for me, family. Family are my binding force, the people that make me better and tell me the things that I need to do to become a better human being. So what do I ask you? The question is, what can you do to change perception and support mental health? Because without your support, this world is... We're limiting all of our own potential. So I urge you just to think about one thing that you can do to make a difference. I'm going to leave you a final thought. I thought it was apt with it being MLK Day last Monday. But let's just take baby steps with progress and positivity in mind. You don't have to run. You don't have to walk. You can crawl. Interesting enough, I had breakfast with a great friend of mine, and he said to me on Monday, "You don't need anxiety, Henry." He suggested that NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, could be an answer to get over my anxiety, and using a different positive anchor to replace anxiety. So that's my journey for this year, to see if I can use that. That's a resource I'm going to take. And here are some resources that maybe you want to have a look at if you're interested in supporting mental health, understanding about mental health and anxiety a little bit deeper. So with that, I thank you for listening and being part of my journey that's still continuing. And I'd ask, let's chat.